Tamara had thought he was off taping, but he was in his hut, lying on the cot, looking thin and cold. "Sorry, Ram. I'm after those photographs of the kids." That box, his gesture pointing out which box was so uncharacteristically languid that she asked, guardedly, "You all right?" Could be better. From him, the admission was a catalogue of misery, but still she did not drop her guard. She waited, and he said, "Diarrhea." You should have said something. Humiliation. Bob was wrong then. He did have a sense of humour. "I'll ask Kara," she said. "They must have something for the trots." "Anything but hot dogs and milkshakes," Ramchandra said, and she laughed, for the description was apt. The staple foods of the Nadif were boneless poro meat and the mushy, sweet fruits of the lamaba tree. "Keep drinking plenty. I'll refill that. Lomox doesn't help?" Nothing left for it to work on. He looked up at her. His eyes were large, black, and clear. "I wish that I throve here," he said, like Bob. That took her off guard. Rebuff and aloofness she expected, trust and candour she did not. She was unready, and her response inadequate. "Oh, he's happy here." "Are you?" "I hate it." She dangled the crude clay water jug and sought exactness. "Not really. It's beautiful. But I get impatient." "Nothing to chew," Ramchandra said bitterly. She laughed again, and went to fill his water jug at the spring a few meters away. The brightness of the sunshine, the perfumes of the air, the gorgeous colours of the lamaba trees, purple trunks, blue and green leaves, red and yellow fruits, all were delightful. The little spring welled up holy and innocent in its bed of clean brown sand. But she returned with gratitude to the hut containing one sullen linguist with diarrhea. "Take it easy, Ram," she said, "and I'll try and get something useful out of Kara and the others." "Thank you," he said. Lovely words, she thought, as she went down the path through perfumed light and shadows towards the river. Lovely in the man's soft, precise accent. When their team of three had first been put together at the base on Ankara, she had been drawn to Ramchandra, a direct, powerful, unmistakable attraction of sex. She had suppressed it, with self-mockery and some shame, for the man was cold, holding himself ostentatiously apart and untouched. And then there was Bob, big, beautiful blonde Bob, lean, tanned, tough Bob, perfect hero of male wish-fulfillment, irresistible. Why resist? Easier to give the easy pleasure he expected. Easy, pleasant, a little depressing, but never mind that. Don't look down into depressions. You might fall in. Live life as it comes, etc. She and Bob would come together inevitably. But they hadn't, for the three of them had come to Yurdo and met Yurdo's inhabitants, the Nadif. The young women of the Nadif, all females between age 12 and age 22 or 3, were sexually available, eager, and adept. They had bright wavy hair of gold or russet, long tilted eyes of green or violet, slender waists and ankles. They wore soft garments of slit pandsu leaves, clinging modestly, parting to reveal the merest glimpse of buttock or nipple. The under-14s danced the hypnotic Sawaya dance in long lines, chanting in their soft, light voices, their round faces mischievously serious. From 14 to 18 they danced to the Balia, leaping naked, one at a time, into the circle of swaying, clapping men, twisting their sinuous bodies into all the postures of practiced eroticism, while the girls waiting their turn to dance sang the pulsing chorus, "Ah, where, ah, where." After they were 18, they no longer danced in public. Tamara left it to Bob to find out what they did in private. After 41 days on Yurdo, he was indubitably an expert in that. She saw now that, though she hadn't wanted him, the promptness, the flatness of his loss of interest in her had hurt. Even last night she had been flirting at him, competing, trying to be a dancing girl with short wiry hair, ship-brindle eyes that tilted the wrong way, muscular wrists. Stupid, her self-mockery, her self-abasement, her self, swept away now like veils of cobweb as she followed the forest path downward to the washing place at the river, thinking. How beautiful the bridge of Ram's nose is. He can't weigh much more than I do, maybe less. Fine-boned. Thank you, he said. Askios, Muna, how's the baby? Askios, Vana, Askios, Kara. How beautiful thy nose, my beloved, like promontory between two wells of water, and the water thereof is exceeding black and cold. Thank you, thank you. Hot today, no? Hot today, hot today. All the middle-aged women agreed enthusiastically as they trampled out the village laundry in the shallow, laughing water. Put your feet in the river, you'll get cold, Vanna encouraged her. Barella patted her shoulder affectionately, murmuring "Askios" as she went by to lay out her portion of the village laundry on a rock to dry. The middle-aged women were between 23 and 40, data still uncertain, and some of them, in Tamara's opinion, were more beautiful than the young women, a beauty which included missing teeth, sagging breasts, and stretchy bellies. The gapped smiles were blithe, the drooping tits held the milk of human kindness, the pregnancy-streaked bellies were full of belly laughs. The young women giggled, the middle-aged women laughed. They laughed, Tamara thought, watching them now, as if they had been set free. The young men were off hunting poro, the pursuit of the fanged hot dogs, she thought, and she too, being a middle-aged woman of 28, laughed, or they were sitting goggling at the Sawaya and Balia dances, or they were sleeping. There were no middle-aged men. Males were young till about 40, when they stopped hunting, stopped watching the dances, and became old, and died. Kara, she said to her best informant, while she took off her sandals and put her feet in the cool water, as Vanna had suggested, my friend Ram is sick in the belly. Oh me, oh dear, Askios, Askios, the nearby woman murmured. Kara, who looked to be pretty nearly an old woman, her knotted hair thin and greying, demanded practically, is it Gwalaga or Kafafaka? Tamara had never heard either word before, but translation was superfluous. Kafafaka, she said. Puty berries he needs, said Kara, slapping a loincloth on a wet boulder. The food we eat here, he says it's very good, too good. Too much fried poro, said Kara, nodding. When children eat too much and spend all night shitting in the bushes, you feed them puti berries and boiled guo for a week. It tastes all right, with honey. I'll boil Uvana Ram a pot of guo as soon as the washing's done. Kara is a beautiful, noble person, Tamara said. It was a stock phrase, the usual Nidif way of saying thank you. Askios, said Kara, grinning. That was a much commoner and more difficult expression. Ramchandra had arrived at no set translation for it. Bob had suggested German bitte, but it covered even more ground than bitte. Please, you're welcome, sorry, wait a minute, never mind, hello, goodbye, yes, no, and maybe, all seemed to fall within the connotations of Askios. With her questions about kafafaka and how to wean babies and when you had to stay in the unclean huts and what was the best kind of cooking pot, Tamara was always a welcome excuse for a conversation break. They sat around on hot boulders in the cool water and let the river wash the laundry and the sun dry and bleach it while they talked. With a part of her mind, Tamara listened to Heraclitus telling her that you shall not step twice into the same river. With the rest of it, she sought information concerning birth control among the Nidif. The subject once opened, the women discussed it leisurely and frankly, but there wasn't much to discuss. There were no devices or systems of birth control at all. Nature provided for the young women. For all their single-minded devotion to erotic practice, they did not become fertile till they were over 20. Tamara was incredulous, but the women were perfectly certain. The dividing line between the young and the middle-aged was, in fact, fertility. Once the line was crossed, their only protection against perpetual pregnancy was abstinence, which they admitted was boring. Abortion and infanticide were not mentioned. When Tamara cautiously suggested them, heads were shaken. Women can't kill babies, Brella said with horror. Kara observed more dryly. If they get caught at it, the men pull out all their hair and send them to the unclean huts to stay. Nobody in our village would do such a thing, Brella said. Nobody got caught at it, Kara said. A group of juvenile males, 9 to 12, came whooping down to the river to swim and fish. They ran right over the drying laundry. The laundress scolded unauthoritatively, tiffly, and the conversation ceased, because the ears of males were not to be polluted with unclean talk. The women rescued the laundry and set off back to the village. Tamara looked in on Ramchandra, who was asleep, and went on to take some photographs of juvenile males playing basto. After supper, communal, cooked and served by the middle-aged women. She saw Kara, Vanna, and old Binira go into Ramchandra's hut and followed them. They woke him up and fed him boiled guo, pinkish cereal like sticky tapioca. They rubbed his legs, sat on his shoulders, put heated stones on his stomach, rearranged his cot so that he lay with his head to the north. Made him drink a sip of something hot, black and minty smelling. Binira sang at him for a while. They left him at last with a fresh hot stone and went off. He accepted all this with ethnological aplomb, with the satisfaction of the invalid being fussed over. When they had gone, he looked comfortable, curled up around the large rock and half asleep. Tamara was going out, when he asked in a remote, tranquil voice, "Did you tape the old lady's song?" "No. Sorry." "Askios, Askios," he whispered. Then, propping himself on his elbow, "I am better. Too bad we didn't tape that. I missed most of the words." "Is Old Nadif a different language?" "No, only much fuller. Complete. The middle-aged women seem to have a much bigger vocabulary than the youngs. At Bavuna, the young women averaged 700 words, the young men 1,100, since they have the hunting vocabulary. I estimate the middle-aged women here to know at least 2,500 words. I can make no estimate of the old men and women yet. These are odd people." Ramchandra lay back and cautiously rearranged himself around the hot stone. His tone also was cautious. There was a slight pause. "Do you want to sleep?" "To talk," he said. Tamara sat down on the woven cane stool. Beyond the open doorway the night was growing bright as day had been. Upa, the big gas planet of which Yedo was a moon, was rising over the forest like a vast striped balloon. Its silver-gilt light pierced every crack in the mud and wattle walls of the hut and pooled incandescent on the ground outside the doorway. The dusk inside the hut was shot through with gleams, shafts, arrows dazzling the eye, a light that revealed nothing, that dissolved bodies and faces into radiant darkness. "Nothing is real," Tamara said. "Of course not," said the other shadow, amused, precise. "They're like actors." "No." "Yes. I don't mean consciously acting, deceiving. I mean artificial, too simple. Beautiful simple people in ever-bountiful paradise." "Ha," Ramchandra said, and a patch of planet light blazed in his hair as he sat up. "Why shouldn't there be a South Sea Island world?" she argued with herself. "Why does it seem too simple? Phony? Am I a Puritan? Am I looking for original sin?" No, of course not. Rubbish," he said. "All that is theories. But listen." For a minute he said nothing to listen to. But then he said some Nadif words. "Vini, Panzu, Basto, Askios. Askios bis Iava oi is basa." "What is that in English?" "Well, please let me get by. Literal translation. The great teaching tradition of the Brahmin caste," Tamara said. "I don't know. The words have so many uses." "Sorry, I want to go this way." "You don't hear it." "Hear what?" "People cannot hear their native language." "All right, listen carefully, please." He was charming when he got excited. The hauteur fell off him like dried mud from a water buffalo. "I'm going to say a sentence in English the way my uncle, who didn't attend World Government School, spoke English. Now, excuse please, I have to go by this path." Repeat. "Excuse please, I have to go by this path. Askios bis eava oi is basa." A chill, like a touch of that cold dazzling planet light, proceeded slowly up Tamara's backbone and prickled the roots of her hair. "Funny," she said. "Sawaya, sway. Balia, belly dance, Bali. Fini, ravine, vines. Basto, bat, baseball. Bani, cabin, cabana. Shuwashu, ocean, sea, onomatopoeia. O, go. Tunu, return. Itunu, I return. Utunu, you return. Tanusi, he returns. Padu, to hit, strike. Fatu, to build, make. Facere, factus, factory. Say a word in the diff. Sika, fishing lines. Wait, no, I can't get that one. Another, please. Philisa, the unclean huts. Filth, filthy. Uvanai, strangers, visitors, foreigners. Singular uvana, you, foreigner. Ram, you don't have diarrhea. You have paranoia. No, he said, so harsh and loud that she started. He cleared his throat. She could not see his eyes, but she knew him to be looking at her. I'm serious, Tamara, he said. I'm frightened. Of what? She jeered. Frightened sick, he said. Scared shitless. You must take words seriously. They are all we have. What are you frightened of? We are 31 light years from Earth. No one from Earth ever came to this solar system before us. These people speak English. They don't. The structure and vocabulary of young Nadif is based at least 60% upon the structure and vocabulary of modern English. His voice shook, as if with fear or with relief. Tamara sat solidly, clasping her knees, and held fast to incredulity. A Nadif word went through her mind, and another, each one followed by its English root or shadow, shadows that had been waiting for the light to show them, but it was absurd. She should not have said the word paranoia. It was true. The man was ill. Weeks of touch-me-not rudeness, and now this sudden change to talk, excitement, warmth, a manic change, and paranoid, the Nadif speaking an English-based code, for mysterious purposes, understood by the expert alone. Ono, 1, Te, 2, Ti, 3. All female names, Ramchandra said morosely, end in A. That is a cosmic constant established by H. Rider Haggard. Male names never end in A. Never. His voice, light-timbered, still a little uneven, confused her thoughts. Listen, Ram. Yes? He was listening, all right. She could not ask him, as she had intended, whether he was playing an elaborate and disagreeable joke on her. His trust must be met in kind. She did not know how to go on, and he broke urgently into her pause. I saw this within a week, Tamara. First the syntax. Then I wouldn't see it. Meaningless, coincidence, etc., etc. I said no, but it says yes. It is so. It is English. Even the old language? No, that's different, he said, hurried, grateful. That's not English. That's itself, wherever it's not based on the baby talk. But all right then. The old language is old, the original language, and the youngs have been influenced, corrupted, by some contact with space service people we don't know about, weren't told about. How? When? They say we are the first. Why would they lie? The space service? Or Venedif? They both say we are the first. Well, if we are the first, then it's us. We're influencing the Nadif. They talk the way we unconsciously expect people to talk. Telepathy. They're telepaths. Telepaths, he said, seizing the idea eagerly, and during the pause that followed, he was evidently wrestling with it, trying to make it fit the circumstances, for he said at last, with frustration, if only we knew anything about telepathy. Tamara, meanwhile, had been going around the problem in another direction, and asked, Why didn't you say anything about this till now? I thought I was insane, he said, in the controlled, precise tone that sounded arrogant because his honesty would not permit him to evade. I have been insane. 6 years ago, after my wife died. There were 2 episodes. Linguists are often unstable. After a little while, Tamara said almost in a whisper, Ramchandra is a beautiful, noble person. She spoke in Nadif. Awe, where, awe, where, went the chanting of the Balia dancers off on the dancing grounds at the edge of the village. A baby cried in a nearby hut. The dark, dazzling air was rich with the scent of night-blooming flowers. Look, she said, doesn't a telepath know what you're thinking? The Nadif don't. I've known people who do. My grandfather, he was Russian. He always knew what people were thinking. It was maddening. I don't know if it was telepathy or being old or being Russian or what. But anyhow, they'd get the thoughts, not the words. Wouldn't they? Who knows? Maybe. You said it's like a stage play, a movie, The Island Paradise. Maybe they sense what we expect or desire and act it, perform it. What for? Adaptation, he said, triumphant. So that we like them and therefore don't harm them. But I don't like them. They're boring. No kinship systems, no social structure except stupid age grading and detestable male dominance. No real skills, no arts, lousy carved spoons, all right, like a Hawaiian tourist trap. No ideas. Once they grow up, they're bored. Kara told me yesterday, life's much too long. If they're trying to produce a facsimile of somebody's heart's desire, it isn't mine, nor mine, Ramchandra said. But Bob? There was a harshness, a homing in quality to the question. Tamara hesitated. I don't know. At first, sure, but he's been restless lately. After all, he's a myths man, and they don't even tell stories. All they ever talk about is who they slept with last night and how many poro they shot. He says they all talk like Hemingway characters. He doesn't talk with the old ones. Again the harshness. And Tamara, defensive of Bob, said, Neither do I much. Do you? They don't participate. They seem so shadowy, unimportant. That was a healing song old Binira sang. Maybe. I think so. A ritual song in the more complex language. If there is high culture, the old ones have it. Maybe they lose the telepathic power as they grow older, so then they can withdraw. They're no longer influenced, forced to adapt. Forced by whom to adapt to what? They're the only intelligent species on the planet. Other villages, other tribes, but then they'd all talk each other's language. All their customs would meld together. Exactly. That explains the homogeneity of the culture. A solution to Babel. He sounded so pleased, and it sounded so plausible, that Tamara did her best to accept the hypothesis. The best she could do was admit finally, the idea makes me queasy for some reason. The old ones have developed true language, non-telepathic language. They are the ones who to talk with. I will request admission to the old men's house tomorrow. You'll have to grow some grey hair. Easily. Is it still black? You'd better get some sleep. He was silent for a while, but did not lie down. Tamara, he said, you are not humouring me, are you? No, she said gruffly, shocked that he was so vulnerable. It is so very like a delusional system. Then it's folie à dos. All this about the language just brings the rest into focus. All 6 villages we visited, all the same things missing, the same improbability, only it's like over-probability, projected telepathy, he said, brooding. They are influencing us, confusing our perceptions, forcing us into subjectivity, driving us away from the reality principle, she said, defensive now of him. Rubbish. She recognized the quotation and laughed. We're talking much too cleverly to be gaga. I talked brilliantly in the mental institution, he said, in several languages, even Sanskrit. He sounded reassured, however, and she stood up. I'm going to bed, she said. A fine night's sleep I'll have now. Do you need a fresh hot rock? No. Listen, I'm sorry. Askios. No rest for the wicked. She had just lit her oil lamp and was spitting on her fingers and pinching the wick to keep it from smoking, which she continued to do when Bob appeared in the doorway of her hut. The light of Upur haloed his thick, fair hair. The importance of his return filled the entire biosphere as the bulk of his body filled the doorway. I just got back, he announced. From where? Gunda, the next village downriver. He came in and sat down on the cane stool while she swore at the burned poro fat on her fingers. An even more world-shaking announcement than that of his return loomed imminent in his scowl. She beat him to the draw. Ram's sick, she said. What with? Deli belly, you could call it. How could anybody get sick here? They have a cure. You sleep with a hot boulder. Christ! Sounds like a cure for potency, Bob said, and they both broke into laughter. While laughing, she almost began to tell Bob about Ram's peculiar linguistic discovery, which for a moment seemed equally ridiculous. But she should let Ram do it, even if it was just a joke. Bob had gone serious again, and now emitted his announcement. I have to fight a duel. Single combat. Oh, Lord! When? Why? Well, that girl, Potita, you know, the redhead. One of the young men in Gunda has his eye on her, so he challenged me. An exogamy arrangement? Has he a claim on her? No, you know they don't have any affiliation patterns. Stop hunting for them. All she is an excuse for a combat. I thought you'd get into trouble, Tamara said, priggishly, though she had thought no such thing. You can't sleep with all the native girls and not expect the assegai of a maddened savage in your back. Half the native girls, okay, but not all of them. Shit, Bob said with discouragement. I know. Look, I never got mixed up like this before. Sleeping with informants and stuff. I can't seem to keep anything straight here, but they expect it. We talked it all out, way back in Bavuna, remember? Ram said he wouldn't. That's okay, he's 40, he's an old man to them. Anyhow, he looks alien. But I look just like them, and if I refuse I'm offending local custom. It's practically the only custom they've got. I have no choice. A laugh, a deep middle-aged woman belly laugh, welled up from Tamara. He looked at her a little startled. All right, he said, and laughed too. But god damn it, they always talked like these combats were voluntary. They're not? Bob shook his head. I represent Hamo Village against Gunda. It's the only kind of war they have. All the young men are really worked up. They haven't won a combat with Gunda for half a year, or some such huge historical time span. It's the World Cup. Tomorrow I get purified. A ceremony? Tamara found Bob's predicament funny but trivial. She leapt from it to the hope of a ceremony, a ritual, anything that would prove some sense and structure in the rudimentary social life of the Nadif. Dances, Sawaya and Balia, all day. Bah, look, I know you'd like some patterns to study, being a configurationist and all, but I have an even more urgent problem. I have to fight a man day after tomorrow, with knives, in front of the entire population of the 2 villages. With knives? Right. Hunters wrestle. Selenzi fight with knives. Selenzi, as Bob translated, competitors for a girl. She transliterated, challenges. After a short silence, she suggested, could you just give him the girl? No. Honor, local pride, all that. And she's content just to be the prize pig? Bob nodded. The pattern is familiar, she said, and then abruptly, nothing. There is nothing alien about these people. Nothing. What? Never mind. Let me work it out. Ram has an idea. Listen, Bob, I think you ought to get out of this, even if you lose face. We can always move on. It would be better than you killing the fellow. Or getting killed. Thanks for the afterthought, Bob said kindly. Don't worry, I'll cheat. Hypodermic? Karate ought to do. I don't mind. It's just that I feel so damned foolish. Public knife fights for a girl. Like a lot of stupid teenagers. It's a teenage society, Bob. Locker room aliens. He scratched his lion's mane of hair and stood up, stretching. He was very beautiful. No wonder the villagers had picked him for their champion. The fact that his physical splendor was informed and animated by an intellectual spirit of no less splendor, a passionate trained mind that sought the stuff of poetry for its own sake, this fact would mean nothing much to the Nadif, or to many people on earth, for that matter. But Tamara, in that moment, saw the young man as what he was, a king. Bob, she said, say no. Beg off. We can just move on. No sweat, he said, and, grateful for her concern, gave her an affectionate bear hug. I'll clobber the poor bastard before he knows what hit him, and then give a lecture. Freshman hygiene. Murder is hazardous to your health. It'll wow them. Do you want me there or not there? There, he said, just in case he's a black belt too. She was down at the laundry beach next afternoon having an interesting discussion of menopause with Kara and Libisa when Ramchandra came out onto the beach from the peacock-coloured forest. Watching him from her rock amid the swirling waters, she thought how foreign he looked, how alien, as Bob had said, like the shadow of somebody standing up in the front row against the marvellous flowing colours of a jungle epic on a movie screen. Too small, too black, too solid. Kara saw him too and shouted, "How's the belly, Uvana Ram?" When he was close enough not to have to shout, he replied, "Askios, Kara, much better. I finished the guo this morning. Good, good. Another potful tonight. You're all skin," Kara said, not inaccurately. "Maybe if he eats enough guo he'll turn purple-coloured," said Brella, studying him. Kara's mention of skin seemed to have brought Ramchandra's swarthy, dusky complexion to her notice for the first time. The Nadif were remarkably inattentive to details. Brella now compared the two foreigners and said, "You too, Tamara. If you only ate people-coloured food, maybe you wouldn't be so ugly and brown." "I never thought of that," said Tamara. "Tamara, we are invited to the old men's house. Both of us? When?" "Both. Now. How did you swing that?" Tamara asked in English, splashing ashore from the boulder she had been sharing with Kara, Labisa, and a lot of freshly washed loincloths. I asked. I'll come too, Kara announced, splashing after Tamara. Askios. Is it right for women to do, Kara? Of course. It is the old men's house, isn't it? Kara dusted off her flat little breasts and brought the fold of her sari-like garment neatly across them. Go on ahead. I'll stop by and pick up Binira. She told me it's worth listening to sometimes in there. I'll see you there. Tamara, her wet feet rimmed with the silvery river sand, joined Ramchandra and entered the peacock forest with him on the narrow path. She was intensely aware of his brown shoulder beside hers, his dark, well-knit and fragile body, the excellent nose in the stern profile. She was aware that she was aware of this, but it was not the important thing just now. Are they holding a ceremony for us? I don't know. I haven't got some of the key words yet. My request to go there appears to be sufficient reason for a gathering there. Is it all right to bring that? He was carrying a tape recorder. Anything goes in Cloud Cuckoo Land, he said, and the stern profile softened with a laugh. Two of the withered, shadowy, scarce old men of the Nadif preceded them into the house. A large, decrepit dugout, 6 or 7 more were sitting around inside. There was much muttering of askios and a strong reek of poro fat. The 2 foreigners joined the ill-defined circle, sitting on the dirt. No fire was lit. No apparatus or atmosphere of ritual was apparent. Presently Kara and Binira came in and sat down muttering askios and cracking mild jokes with the old men. From across the circle, the place was lit only by the smoke hole, and it was hard to see faces clearly. Somebody asked something of Kara. Tamara did not understand the question. Kara's response was, I'm getting old enough, aren't I? There was a general laugh. One more came in. Brocap, said once to have been a famous hunter, still a big man but stooped, wrinkled and turtle-mouthed from the loss of his teeth. Instead of sitting down, he went to the empty fire pit under the smoke hole and stood there, arms at his sides. Silence grew around him. He turned slowly till he faced Ramchandra. Have you come to learn to dance? If I may, Ramchandra answered clearly. Are you old? I am no longer young. My God, Tamara thought. It's an initiation. Can Ram keep it up? And the next question, sure enough, she did not understand at all. There were no young or middle Nadif words in it. Ram, however, appeared to understand, and replied promptly, Not often. When did you last bring home the kill? I have never killed an animal. That brought a hoot, laughs, and some critical discussion. He must have been born 50 years old, Binira said, sniggering. Or else he is terribly lazy, said a youngish old man with a simple look, very earnestly. 2 more questions and answers Tamara could not follow, and then Brocap demanded, harshly she thought, What do you hunt? I hunt Peremenso. Whatever it was right. Audible and tangible approval, backslaps, relaxation. Brocap nodded once, shortly, wiped his nose with the back of his hand, and sat down in the circle beside Ramchandra. What do you want to know? He inquired, in a thoroughly unritualistic and offhand manner. I should like to know, Ramchandra said, how the world began. Oh ho ho, went a couple of geezers across the circle. Too old for his years, this one. 100 years old, this fellow. We say this, Brocap replied. Man made the world. I should like to know how he did it. In his head, between his ears. How else? Everything is in the head. Nothing is wood, nothing is stone, nothing is water, nothing is blood, nothing is bone. All things are sanis suk ierad. In her frustration at never knowing the key word, Tamara watched Ram's face as if she could interpret from it, and indeed he understood. His eyes shone, he smiled, so that his features rounded out and grew gentle. He dances, he said. He dances. Maybe so, Brocap replied. Maybe man dances in his head, and that makes Sanisukirad. Only if this repetition did Tamara hear the name man as a name, a Nadif name or word which happened to coincide in sound with the English word man, but she had taken it to coincide in meaning. Did it? For a minute everything fell apart into 2 levels, 2 overlapping screens or veils, one of them sounds, one of them meanings, neither of them real. Their overlap and interplay, their shift and movement, confused everything, concealed or revealed everything. In that flow there was nothing to take hold of, Not even once can you step into the river unless you are the river. The world began and nothing was happening. Some wizened old men and women talking nonsense with Lord Shiva in a smelly hut. Talking, merely talking, words that meant nothing twice. The parted veils closed again. She checked that the tape was running in the recorder and turned up the gain a little. Replaying all this later, with Ram to interpret and explain, maybe it would make sense. They did dance at last. After much talk, Benira announced, "That's enough Paramenkirad without music," and Brocap rather ungraciously said, "All right, Askios, go ahead," at which Benira began to sing in a small, unearthly, creaking voice, and presently one old man, and then another, got up and danced, a slow dance, the feet close to the ground, the torso still and poised, intensity concentrated in the hands, arms, and face. It brought tears to Tamara's eyes, the dance of the shadowy old men. Others joined. Now they were all dancing, all but Kara and herself. Sometimes they touched one another, lightly and solemnly, or bowed like cranes. All of them? Yes, Ram was dancing with them. The golden dusty light from the smoke hole flowed along his arms. Lightly and softly he lifted and set down his bare feet. An old man faced him. O Komea, Ama, oh, sang the creaking cricket trill, and Kara's hands, Tamara's hands, patted time on the brown dirt. The old man's hands were lifted as in supplication. Ramchandra reached to him, the flowing arm, the poised and separated fingers. Smiling, he touched and turned, still dancing, and the old man smiled and began to sing, O Komea, Ama, oh. "Do we have a session on tape for you to listen to?" Tamara said, but she said it mainly to distract Bob from his hangdog mood as they went together down the path towards the clearing where the duel was to be fought. The path was littered with flammaba fruit rinds, as most of the village had preceded them. More love songs? No. Well, yes, love songs to God. You know what God's name is? Yes, Bob said indifferently. Old man at Gunda told me. Big cop man. The duel went nicely, but not quite as planned by both parties. Since it was the one group action by the young Nidif besides Sawaya and Balia dancing, which seemed to be a genuine ritual or meaning focused act, Tamara diligently taped, filmed, and note-took the whole thing, including the red-headed Potita's expression, and here she is, Miss America. The infliction of a knife stab in Bob's thigh by Pitwat, the Gunda challenger, Bob's fine gesture throwing away his long-bladed knife, a glittering arc into the pink-flowered putti bushes, and the karate throw that stretched Pitwat flat and apparently lifeless on the ground. Bob did not stay to deliver his lecture on the unhygienic aspects of murder. His wound was bleeding hard, and Tamara cut off the movie camera and got to work with the first aid kit. Thus the jubilation of Hamo village and the discomfiture of Gunda were recorded only on sound tape, and the tape recorder was off when Pitwat revived, to the discomfiture of both Hamo and Gunda. Slain Salenzi were not supposed to come alive and get up, staggering but undamaged. By this time, however, Bob was on the homeward path to Hamo, white-faced and not unwilling to hold on to Tamara's arm. "Where's Ram?" he asked for the first time, and she explained that she had not even told Ram a duel was to take place. "Good," Bob said. "I know what he'd say." "I don't." Irresponsible involvement in native life ways. She shook her head. "I didn't tell him because I didn't even see him today, and I thought..." She had in fact forgotten about the duel. It had seemed so silly, so unreal, compared to that dancing in the old men's house. It had all been a stupid, annoying joke, right up to the moment when she saw the colour, the splendid and terrible colour of blood in the sunlight, but she could not tell Bob that. He's made a kind of breakthrough. By getting involved himself, he spent all day in the old men's house. I want him to talk with you tonight, once we get your leg looked after, and he'll want to know what the people in Gunda said about man. About God, I mean. Look out for that vine. Oh Lord, here comes the football fans. A troop of young women were pursuing them, half-heartedly pelting Bob with putti flowers. "Where's Potita?" Bob muttered, setting his teeth. "Not in this lot. Are you really fond of her, Bob?" "No. It's that my leg hurts." "No, it was just fun and games." I just wondered if Pitwat caught her or I did. It turned out that Pitwat got her, since he stayed on the field of combat and performed the victory dance, rather shakily to be sure. Bob was relieved, since Pitwat was certainly better suited to Potita by temperament and circumstance, and as for the victory dance, a 2-minute fit of stomping and posing, they'd already got several films of champion wrestlers performing it. All we needed was a movie of me beating my chest, Bob said. Christ. With my legs spouting, and feeling like a prize ass all round, anyhow. Ass all round, curious image, Ramchandra said. They had got a fire going in Bob's hut. It was raining. It rained only at night on Yeardo. And Bob had lost enough blood that a little extra warmth and cheer might do him good. The air got smoky, but the ruddy light was pleasant. It made Tamara think of winter, of rain and firelight in winter, a season unknown to Yeardo. Bob lay stretched out on his cot, and the other two sat by the hearth, feeding the fire with dried lamaba rinds, which burned with a clear flame and a scent of pineapple. Ram, what does peremenso mean? Thinking, ideas, understanding, talk. And peramenkierad, is that right? About the same, plus a connotation of illusion, deception, trickery, play. Is this old Nadif? Bob inquired. If you're making dictionaries, let me see him, Ram. I couldn't understand anything the old boys were telling me in Gondar, except God's name, Tamara said. Ramchandra raised his eyebrows. Big cop man made the world with his ears, Bob said, and that isn't a diff equivalent of Genesis, Book 1, between his ears. Ramchandra corrected coldly. With them or between them, it's a pretty poor excuse for a creation myth. How do you know if your vocabulary is inadequate? Why did he take that tone with Bob? Supercilious, pedantic, offensive, even the voice high and the schoolmarmish. Bob's solid good nature shone by contrast in his reply. It's taken me weeks to realize that, if I'm after myth or history, the only people here who may have them are the old ones. I should have been checking in with you much earlier. Ramchandra stared into the fire and said nothing. Ram, Tamara said, profoundly irritated with him. Bob should know about this thing we talked about the other night, the derivation of young Nadif. He went on staring into the fire, mute. You can explain it better than I can. After a moment he merely shook his head. You've decided it was a mistake? She demanded, more exasperated than ever, but also with a flash of hope. No, he said. The documentation is in that notebook I gave you. She fetched the notebook from her heart, lighted the oil lamp, and sat down on the floor by Bob's cot so he could read over her shoulder. For half an hour they went over Ramchandra's orderly and exhaustive proofs of the direct derivation of young Nadif from modern standard English. Bob laughed at first, taking the whole thing as a grand scholarly joke. Then he laughed at the sheer lunacy of it. It did not seem to disturb him, as it disturbed Tamara. If it's not your hoax, Ram, it's still a hoax. A terrific one. By whom? How? Why? Tamara asked, hopeful again. A mistake made sense. A hoax made sense. All right, this language, and he tapped the notebook, isn't authentic. It's a fake, a construct, invented. Right? Ramchandra, who had not said a word all this while, agreed in a remote, unwilling tone. Invented. By an amateur. The correspondences with English are naive, unconscious, as in speaking in tongues. But Old Nadif is an authentic language. An older one, an archaic survival? No, Ramchandra said. No. Often, flatly, and with satisfaction, Tamara thought. Old Nadif is alive. It is based upon young Nadif, has grown out of it, or over it, like ivy on a telephone pole. Spontaneously? As spontaneously as any language, or as deliberately. When words are wanted, needed, people have to make them. It happens, like a bird singing, but it's also work, like Mozart writing music. Then you'd say the old ones are gradually making a real language out of this fake one? I cannot define the word real, and therefore would not use it. Ramchandra shifted his position, reclasping his arms round his knees, but did not look up from the fire. I would say that the old Nadif seemed to be engaged in creating the world. Human beings do this primarily by means of language, music, and the dance. Bob stared at him, then at Tamara. Come again? Ramchandra was silent. So far, Tamara said, working in 3 widely separate localities, we found the same language without major dialectical variations and the same set of very rudimentary social and cultural patterns. Bob hasn't found any legends, any expressions of the archetypes, any developed symbology. I haven't found much more social structure than I'd find in a herd of cattle, about what I might find in a primate troop. Sex and age determine all roles. The Nadif are culturally subhuman. They don't exist fully as human beings. The old Nadif are beginning to. Is that it, Ram? I don't know, the linguist said, withdrawn. That's missionary talk, Bob said. Subhuman? Come on. Stagnant, sure. Maybe because there's no environmental challenge. Food falls out of the trees, game's plentiful, and they don't have sexual hang-ups. That's inhuman, Tamara interjected. Bob ignored her. There's no stimulus. Okay, but the old ones get shoved out of the fun and games. They get bored. That's the stimulus. They start playing around with words and ideas. So what rudiments of mytha, poetics, and ritual they've got are their creation. That's not an unusual situation. The young busy with sex and physical competitions, the old as culture transmitters. The only weird thing is this English Nadif business. That needs explaining. I just don't buy telepathy. You can't build a scientific explanation on an occultist theory. The only rational explanation is that these people, the whole society, are a plant. A quite recent one. Correct, Ramchandra said. But listen, Tamara said with fury, how can 250,000 people be planted? What about the ones over 30? We've only had FTL spaceflight for 30 years. The exploratory survey to this system was unmanned, and it was only 8 years ago. Your rational explanation is pure nonsense. Correct, Ramchandra said again, his clear, dark, sorrowful gaze on the flickering fire. Evidently there's been a manned mission, a colonizing mission to this planet, which the world government doesn't know about. We have stumbled into something, and it begins to scare me. The Sohem faction. Bob was interrupted by the sudden entrance, the Nadif never knock, of Brocap, 2 other old men, and 2 ballet dancers, beautiful half-naked 16-year-olds with flowers in their tawny hair. They knelt by Bob's cot and made soft, lamenting sounds. Brocap stood as majestically as he could in the now very crowded hut and gazed down at Bob. He was clearly waiting for the girls to be quiet, but one of them was now chattering cheerfully and the other was drawing circles around Bob's nipples with her long fingernails. Uvana Bob, Brocap said at last. Are you big cop man? Am I? Askios, Wana. No. Askios, Brocap. I don't understand. Sometimes man comes, the old Nadif said. He has come to Hamo and to Faraway, never to Gunda or to Akko. He is strong and tall, golden-haired and golden-skinned, a great hunter, a great fighter, a great lover. He comes from far away and goes away again. We have thought that you were he. You are not he? No, I am not, Bob said decisively. Brocap took a deep breath that heaved his wrinkled chest. Then you will die, he said. Die? Bob repeated without comprehension. Die how? Of what? Tamara demanded, standing up so that in the press of people in the little hut she was brought face to face with the old man. What do you mean, Brocap? Gunda challengers use poisoned knives, the old man said, to find out which ones from Hamo are Big Cop Man. Poison doesn't kill Big Cop Man. What poison? That's their secret, Brocap said. Gunda is full of wicked people. We of Hamo use no poisons. For Christ's sake, Bob said in English and in the diff. Why didn't you tell me? The young men thought you knew. They thought you were man. Then when you let Pitwat wound you, when you threw away your knife, when you killed him, but he came back to life, they weren't sure. They came to the old men's house to ask, because we in the old men's house have paramenso about man. There was pride in the old man's voice. Thus I came to you. Askios, Uvana Bob. Brocap turned and pushed his way out. The other old men followed him. Go away, Bob said to the smiling, caressing girls. Go on now. They left, reluctant, swaying, their pretty faces troubled. I'll go to Gunda, Ramchandra said, see if there's an antidote, and he was off at a run. Bob's face was dead white. Another damned hoax, he said, smiling. You bled a lot, Bob. Probably bled out the poison right away, if there really was any. Let me have a look at it. It looks absolutely clear. No inflammation. My breath's been coming short, the young man said. Most likely shock. Yes. Let me get the medical handbook. The handbook had no recommendations, and Gunda had no antidote. The poison acted on the central nervous system. Paroxysms began 2 hours after Brocap's visit. They increased quickly in severity and frequency. Sometime after midnight, long before dawn, Bob died. Ramchandra struck the 10th useless blow over the stopped heart, raised his arm to strike again, and did not strike. The dancer's raised arm, creator, destroyer. The clenched dark fist relaxed. The poised and separated fingers hovered above the white face and the unbreathing chest. Ah! Ramchandra cried aloud, and dropping down beside the cot broke into tears, a passion of tears. Wind gusted the rain against the roof. Time passed and Ramchandra was silent as Bob, beside whom he crouched, his arms stretched across Bob's body and his head sunk between them. Exhausted, he had fallen asleep. The rain thinned and weakened and then beat hard again. Tamara put out the oil lamp, her movements slow and certain, full of the knowledge of what they meant. She added the last of the fuel to the fire and sat down at the little hearth. One must watch with the newly dead, and the sleeping should not sleep unprotected. She sat awake and watched the fire die out, and long afterwards the grey light reborn. Nadif funerals were, as she had expected, graceless. There was a burying ground not far off in the forest, which nobody talked about or ever visited except for burials. Grave digging was the old men's task. They had dug a shallow pit. 2 of them, plus Kara and Binira, helped carry Bob's body to the grave. The Nadif used no coffins, dumped their dead naked in the earth. It was too cold that way, too cold, Tamara thought with rage, and she had put Bob's white shirt and trousers on him, left his gold Swiss watch strapped on his wrist, since he owned no other treasure, and wrapped the long, silky, bluish leaves of the panzu carefully about him. She lined the shallow grave with leaves before they laid him in it. The 4 old men and women watched, expressionless. They laid him on his side, his knees a little bent. Tamara turned for a flower to put by his hand, but the pink and purple blossoms sickened her. She broke the chain around her neck, on which hung a little turquoise her mother had given her, a fragment of the earth, and put that in the dead man's hand. She had to be quick. The old men were already scraping the dirt back over the grave with their crude wooden shovels. As soon as that was done, all 4 Nadif turned without a word and went off, not looking back. Ramchandra knelt down by the grave. "I am sorry I was jealous of you," he said. "If we meet reborn, you will be a king again, but I will be the dog at your heel." He bowed down, touching the raw, damp clods of the grave, then slowly stood up. He looked at Tamara. She knew his look, the dark, clear, grieving eyes, but she could not meet them or speak. It was her turn to cry. He came to her across the grave, as if it was any bit of ground, and put his arms around her, holding her so she could weep. When the first hardest sobbing was done and she could walk, they set off slowly down the narrow, half-overgrown path, through the peacock splendours of the forest, back to the village. "Burning is better," Ramchandra said. "The spirit is freed, sooner to go on." "Earth is best," Tamara said, very low and hoarse. "Tamara, do you want to radio Ankara base to send the launch to us?" "I don't know. There's no hurry to decide." The gorgeous colours of the Lamabas blurred and cleared and blurred again. She stumbled, though Ramchandra's hand was kind and firm on her arm. "We might as well go on and finish what we came for." The ethnology of dreams. Dreams? Oh no, this is real. Much realer than I wish it were. So are all dreams. In 3 days they put in their regular call to Ankara, the inner planet where the central base for the various research groups in Yedo solar system was established. They reported Bob's death, by misunderstanding, no blame, in the ethnographic core code. They did not request relief. Life in the Hamo village went on as before. The middle-aged women said nothing about Bob's death to Tamara, but several evenings old Binira sat just outside her hut and sang to her, a quiet cricket trill. Once she saw 2 of the little Sawaya dancers leaving a flowering branch at the door of Bob's empty hut. She went towards them, but they trotted off, giggling. Soon after, the young men set fire to the hut, deliberately or by accident, there was no telling. It burned to ashes and all trace of it was gone within a week. Ramchandra spent his days and nights with the old ones of Hamo and Gunda, gathering an increasingly solid bulk of linguistic and mythic data. The long lines of Sawaya dancers undulated. The Balia dancers thrust their high breasts left and right, singers chanted, "Ah where, ah where," and the forest glades around the dancing ground at dusk swarmed with coupled bodies. Hunters returned proudly with dead poro, like suckling pigs with blunt, curved fangs slung on carrying poles. On the 12th night after Bob's death, Ramchandra came to Tamara's hut. She had been trying to read over some notes, but the pages might as well have been empty. Her head ached, and nothing made sense. Nothing meant anything. He came to the doorway, dark, slight, shadowy, and she looked up at him with dull eyes. He said something that meant nothing about loneliness, and then he said, with the darkness around him and behind him, "It's like fire, like burning in a fire." But the spirit caught too, burning. "Come in," she said. A few nights later they lay talking, in the dark, the soft windy rain sighing in the forest and on the thatch of the hut above them. "Since I first saw you," he said, "truly, since the day we met in the canteen at Ankara Base." With a laugh, Tamara said, "You scarcely behaved as if. I didn't like it. I refused. I said, no, no, no. My wife was enough. This doesn't come twice to a man in one life. I will remember her." "You do," Tamara murmured. "Of course. To her, in me now I can say, yes, and to you, with me, yes, yes." "Listen, Tamara, you set me free, your hands free me, and bind me, tighter to the wheel. Never in this life now will I get free, never cease to desire you. I don't want to cease. It's so simple now. What was in our way? My fear, my jealousy." "Jealousy? Of Bob?" "Oh yes," he said, shivering. "Oh, Ram, never. Right from the beginning you... Confusion," he whispered. "Illusion." His warmth against her the length of her body, his warmth against her the length of her body, and cold Bob cold in the ground. Fire is better than earth. She woke. He was stroking her hair and cheek, soothing her, whispering, "Sleep again. It's all right, Tamara." His voice heavy with sleep and tenderness. "What? Did I? A bad dream? Dream? Oh no, it wasn't bad, just queer." The rain had ceased, and the light of the giant planet, greyed and filtered by clouds, was like a faint mist in the hut. She could just make out the hook of his nose, the darkness of his hair, in that grey dust of light. What was the dream? A boy, a young man. No, a boy, about 15, standing in front of me, sort of filling everything, taking up all the room, so that I couldn't possibly get past him or around him, but just an ordinary boy, with glasses, I think, and he was staring at me, not threatening, not even really seeing me, but he kept staring and saying, Bill me, and I didn't think he owed me anything, so I said, "What for?" But he just kept saying, "Bill me," and then I woke up. "Bill me." "How funny," Ramchandra said sleepily. "Bill me. Me Bill." "Yes, that's it. I'm Bill." That's what he meant. "Oh," Ramchandra said, a deep exhalation, and she felt his relaxed body go tense. Since Bob's death, she had not trusted the Nadif, or rather, without distrusting any of them, she had lost trust in their world. She feared harm. She raised her head quickly to see if someone had entered the hut. "What's wrong?" "Nothing is wrong." "What is it?" "Nothing. Go back to sleep." "You talked to God." "The dream?" "Yes." "He told you his name." "Bill?" she said. And because the alarm was past and she was still sleepy and Ramchandra was laughing, she laughed. "God's name is Bill?" "Yes, yes. Bill Kopman, or Kopfman, or Kupman." "Big Kopman?" The L assimilates to the K, as in Sika, the fibre they make fishing lines of. "Silk." "What are you babbling about?" "Bill Kopman, who made this world." "Who what?" "Who? Who made this world?" "This world. Yirdo, the Poro, the Puti bushes, the Nadif." "You saw him in your dream." "A 15-year-old boy, with glasses, probably also acne and weak ankles." "You saw him, and so my eyes see for a moment too. A skinny boy, lazy, shy. He reads stories, he daydreams about the great blonde hero who can hunt and fight and make love all day and night. His head is full of the hero, himself, and so it all comes to be." "Ram, stop it." "But you talked to him, not I. You asked him what for, but he couldn't tell you. He doesn't know. He doesn't understand desire. He's entirely caught in it, bound by it. He sees and knows nothing but his own immense desire. And so he makes the world. Only one free of desire is free of the worlds, you know." Tamara looked, as if over her shoulder, back into her dream. He speaks English, she said, unwillingly. Ramchandra nodded. His tranquillity, his acceptant, playful tone, reassured her. It was interesting to lie looking together at the same silly dream. He writes it all down, she said. His fantasies about the Nadif. Maps and everything. A lot of kids do that. And some adults. Perhaps he has a notebook of his invented language. It would be interesting to compare with my notebooks. Much easier just to go find him and borrow his. Yes, but he doesn't know Old Nadif. Ramchandra, beloved, you are saying that because a boy writes nonsense in a notebook in Topeka, a planet 31 light years away comes into existence, with all its plants and animals and people, and always has been in existence, because of the boy in the notebook. And what about the boy with a notebook in Schenectady or New Delhi? Evidently. Your nonsense is much worse than Bill Copman's. Why? Time. And there isn't room, there is room, there is time, all the galaxies, all the universes, that is infinity, the worlds are infinite, the cycles are endless, there is room, room for all the dreams, all the desires, no end to it, worlds without end. His voice now was remote. Bill Copman dreams, he said, and the god dances, and Bob dies, and we make love. She saw the boy's blind yearning face before her, filling the world, no way around it, no path. You're only joking, Ramchandra, she said. She was shivering now. I'm only joking, Tamara, he said. If it weren't a joke, I couldn't bear it. Being caught here, stuck in somebody else's dream world, alternate world, whatever it is. Why caught? We call Ankara. They send the launch for us. Next passage out, we can go back to Earth if we like. Nothing has changed. But this idea that it's somebody else's world. What if, while we're still here, Bill Copman woke up? Once in a thousand years does a soul wake up, Ramchandra said, and his voice was sad. She wondered why that made him sad. She found it comforting. Brooding, she found further comfort. It wouldn't all depend on him, even if he started it, she said. All the uninhabited places, they'd just be blanks on his maps, but they're full of life, animals and trees and ferns and little flies. Reality is what works, isn't it? And the old men and women, they wouldn't be part of Bill's wet dreams. He probably doesn't even know any old people. He isn't interested. So they get free. Yes, they begin to imagine their world for themselves, to think, to make words, to tell the story. I wonder if he ever thinks of death. Can anyone think of death? Ramchandra asked. One can only do it, as Bob did. Can one dream of sleep? The soft dust-grey light was more intense as the clouds thinned, drifting silent to the east. He looked anxious in the dream, Tamara murmured, frightened, as if Bob paid the debt. Tamara, you go before me, always before me. His forehead was against her breasts. She touched his hair lightly. Ramchandra, she said, I want to go home, I think, away from this place, back to the real world. You go before, I follow you. Oh, humble you are, liar, hoaxer, dancer. You're so humble, but you don't really care, do you? You're not frightened. Not any more, he said, in a breath barely audible. How long have you understood about this place? Since you danced with Brocap and the others that first time? No. Only now since your dream, this night, now. You saw. All I can do is say. But yes, if you like, I can say it because I have always known it. I speak my native tongue because you have brought me home. The house under the trees behind the temple of Shiva in a suburb of Calcutta, is that my home? Is this the world, the real world? Which one? What does it matter? Who dreamed the earth? A greater dreamer than you or I, but we are the dreamer, Shakti, and the worlds will endure as long as our desire.